Hey, welcome back to Hillbilly Hustle. I'm your host, Zach Hampton, and today I have the pleasure of meeting with Rich Blanton, the CEO and founder of Fran Visionary. And I'd like to hear a little bit about your story, starting with, I guess, kind of what is Fran Visionary. Give a little introduction on franchising, something I'm fairly ignorant on, but overview of that, and then we'll kind of go into some more details. So,
Sounds good. Looking forward to it, Zach. Thanks for having me out.
absolutely.
A little bit about Fran Visionary. Started back in 2017, 18, looking at a franchise business myself. In 2014, I got let go from the corporate world, and at that time I was 47, and I was just ready to do something on my own. Had been ready for many years, but there's a backstory to that. So single parent for a long time.
So, you got a little push.
Yeah, a little push, and I did many things before I actually started looking at this particular franchise business that was local. But that's kind of what got me started into the franchise consulting world in 2020 when I became a franchise consultant and started my business with Fran Visionary.
So, what is a franchise consultant?
Yeah, that's a good question because I asked myself the same question. Franchise consultant, so you have many consultants in the business world that specializes in consulting some type of profession. So it could be consulting, a business consultant. It could be a consultant for a particular attorney or accountant, or in this case, franchise businesses. A consultant is a go-between, is someone like myself who educates people, guides people, and helps them find the right information that they need to find to help them make a good decision if they're looking at business ownership, specifically franchise ownership. So I reference everything to, and you'll hear this a lot from me because I like to dumb it down for myself, right? Because if I know it and can understand it, so can everybody else. So I dumb it down to the real estate world. Everybody understands the real estate world pretty much, right? You've got a real estate broker, right? And then you have real estate representatives that work maybe for that broker. And if I wanted to, buy a house, I'm going to reach out to one of my friends who is a real estate agent, right? So they're the go-between. They have the knowledge, the understanding of the real estate world, of what you need, not just in looking at homes, but areas that you're looking in, what values are. They may have certain people in their network that's very important, like a banker that does very well to help you get to where you need to go. Same thing in my world. I've got franchise attorneys, franchise CPAs. I work with about 350 franchisors throughout the United States. So I don't help people just here in my local area. I help people all over the U.S. Right now I've got one in Houston, Texas, one in Tampa, and one in New York. So it can vary.
So, I guess when you started out, would you start out with like your first guy, one, two, and then like through networking, did it just grow that big?
Yes, that's a good question too. So being new into the world and really kind of unraveling it and trying to have a better understanding myself, let me give you just a little backstory. Let's go back to 2017, 2018, when I was looking at a local franchise to buy. So that'll help preface everything else. So a really good friend of mine's wife is good friends with the lady that owned a franchise, and her husband had owned it 26 years. They were going through a divorce, and so it wasn't really for sale yet. But my best friend, who knows me very well, knows I was looking for businesses at that time. I was looking at local businesses. Had never looked at a franchise. Never even thought to look at a franchise because I thought franchises are out of my affordability. So that's another topic. So his wife told this lady that I was maybe interested in her business, so we got together, and I kind of went through the back door, backwards of what you'd normally do. but I went through her business, her day-to-day operations, her financials, and then she directed me to Craig Green, which was the franchise developer of the franchise corporation called Kitchen Tune-Up. So then I was handed off to him, and then I went through the process with the franchisor, which is they kind of interview you, go through some questions. They want to be sure you're a good fit, while at the same time, I want to be sure I'm a good fit for them as well. Number one thing I tell people to look for is culture, because you got to remember you're going to be working with this corporation for 10 years. Why 10 years? Most agreements are 10 years. So really enjoyed my conversations with Craig. It soon went to he sent me the FDD, which is the franchise disclosure document, which is a small word for a lot. It's 200 to 300 page legal document written by attorneys.
And probably covers every little loophole you could possibly imagine.
It's everything in their business. It's their business plan, every expenditure, everything that you do in that business, how you operate that business, how you function, marketing, etc. There's 23 items that's very important in that document that you really need to understand. And that's why I have a network of franchise attorneys as well, because I used one myself. This is not your local attorney. I'm not knocking your local attorney, but these are attorneys. That's all they do. They specialize in franchising. Just kind of like I tell people, you're not going to go to a dentist if you need a heart doctor.
Sure.
Right? So you need to find people.
All doctors aren't created equal.
That's right. And you need to specialize. You need people that specialize in that to help you. So went through that process with them, went through franchise validation. That's kind of the next step. Franchise validation is the second really and most important step in looking at a business. Franchise validation is nothing more than me calling, they do it in different ways, but me calling existing franchisees that are in business, and I get to question them and ask them any questions I want. So it's a good way to validate the business for yourself. And you can get a lot of questions answered. The franchisor, because of the FTC, which is really crazy, they're only allowed to say certain things. So when it comes to certain financials and the specifics of the financials, they can give you the top 10%, the middle, the bottom, etc. The franchisees are where you need to go to get that information. So this is part of the process. So I went through all this process. I say this story to make more understanding for you and your audience how I got into the franchise consulting world. So that worked out really well. I met with Heidi Morrissey. She's the CEO. Craig and Heidi, they're like, yeah, we like you. We want you on board. I like them. I like the business model. Like anything pretty much with real estate. It doesn't matter what it is. I was pretty fired up about it, but Pam and I, the owner of that company, just had not come to an agreement on the price. And I just didn't feel comfortable with what she was initially asking. She did come down some, but I offered her a cash price and she didn't accept it, but I didn't want to burn the bridges. So we just shook hands and went on. So that kind of opened my eyes, I think, to the franchise world and realizing, well, you really don't have to have $1 million to get business. You don't
Got
have
your feet wet and realize some things.
It's a learning, it's a learning curve, kind of like you were talking about. There's so much to learn in everything. I still don't know it all. We'll never know it all, but I know the right people to call.
Yeah.
So that was my first adventure, and then I looked at a couple more businesses local, and they weren't franchises, but that didn't pan out. So I was kind of in frustration mode. And because I was doing some things in the stock market, some other things to make money because I didn't go back to work. And another really good friend of mine, thankfully for him, he's a serial entrepreneur. He gets into everything. He called me up one day. He said, "Hey, I've got the perfect business for you." So, what's that? He said, "Franchise consulting." I said the same thing you just said a minute ago, Zach. What is franchise consulting? I had no clue because I didn't go through that.
Yeah.
And he explained it to me. He said, "Hey, I think I'm going to get involved as well." He owns another business here in the Tri-Cities, He said, I can do this on the side. We can go in together, split the cost, split the risk, right? Split the financial risk. If it don't work out, that's fine. We didn't lose a tremendous amount. Any amount's a tremendous amount in my book, but
Especially if you don't have a job.
yeah, I'm pulling out my account, right? So we did that, and I ended up buying him out at the end of the first year in 2020. I got started in January 2020, and I finished up my house. I had to finish a house first. So I had to finish my house, and then I really started training in March of 2020 and really started getting into it in June of 2020. But he got everything set up, website, everything. He took care of a lot of the details on the back end. And anyway, he's like, at the end of the year, he's like, yeah, I just don't think I have time for this, And so I bought him out and continued the business. But I was super blessed. Had a good friend of mine in the medical field that gave me a call out of the blue. He saw my information on LinkedIn and what I was doing. And I was like, wow, LinkedIn must work, right? So I took him and his twin brother through the process. That was my first getting my feet wet, right? And then another gentleman from Reading, Pennsylvania. He's the youngest I've helped so far. He's 32, was 32. That was 5 years ago. I helped him through the process, and he ended up being awarded a franchise. And then that same year, my next door neighbor that moved up from Orlando, Florida, ended up buying a franchise. So that was kind of my first year experience in the franchise world. And I just realized how much it really opened my eyes and how much I really didn't know that I needed to learn.
But you enjoyed it.
I thoroughly enjoy it. I enjoy helping people.
Well, I think that's good, and something for the listeners. Like, take action, and then you'll learn some things that you can take more action. But if you hadn't have stepped in to that first, do I even want to buy this franchise? I don't even know much about it. Walking into it, learning some things, figured out that particular one wasn't for you. But that opened the door that if you wouldn't have taken that first step, you probably wouldn't be where you are today.
I probably wouldn't. And it's, I think we all have learned that or are learning that through life is really just stepping up on faith and taking action in whatever that may be in your life. Because we all have the fear of the unknown, right? But really, what is the unknown? It's just something you haven't learned yet. You're just talking about being ignorant in franchising. We're all ignorant in some way, right? Until you learn it. But you have to take that first step to get you to the next step. And I love what you just said, because if you don't, you've missed opportunities, in my opinion, that God may be laying right out in front of you. And I think I've missed a lot of those in my life because I've had, my blinders on. My blinders on because I thought I can do this myself. And not in the wrong aspect too much, but some of it was pride. Like, I thought, well, God, He gave me the ability to do this. I could do it. But I've since learned that's not how I operate anymore.
I'm going to check out this camera real quick to make sure it's still recording.
Good deal.
Man, that is such a weight off, not having to worry about the camera.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
I can just enjoy the conversation.
Yeah. It's off your mind now.
Yeah. It's like before every 25 minutes, I'm just waiting for this thing to go off so I can go do it. So, well, I like what you said about kind of learning to trust God along the way. And what I'd like to do is ask a little bit of your background, a little bit of how you became the Rich Blanton that you are today. Childhood, growing up, where'd you grow up? Can you kind of give me some insight on that?
Yeah, that's. I'll try to put that in perspective in a small amount of time, and I hope I can lay it out well for you.
Shoot.
But yeah, I grew up local. I'm local. I'm 58 today. very thankful and gracious for every single day that I have. A
And for
lot of
the local is Southern Appalachia,
oh,
East Tennessee area.
yeah, Kingsport, Tennessee. Um, didn't live in the city, lived in the county, went to county schools. I can actually say this. I used to walk to school. We heard that from our parents and
Wow.
grandparents. Yeah, I used to walk to school in my bare feet. I didn't go walking to school in bare feet, but I did walk to school, to elementary school. But yeah, I grew up local in the area. Have an older brother, 3 years older. Mom and dad have been married their entire life since 1963. Um, Mom and dad are still living, healthy, very thankful for that. Every day is a true blessing. Grew up blue collar family. Mom stayed at home up until honestly I was in high school, and then she started working. Started part time and then eventually went full time after I started college. But had a pretty close family, good childhood, roof over my head, food on the table, clothes on my back. I'd say a normal. I mean, everything's relative, right? What normal is, but I had a pretty normal childhood. Very thankful for my neighborhood. Grew up in a neighborhood full of kids, and we'd do all kinds of stuff: play ball outside, ride bikes, all the fun stuff.
And you mentioned faith earlier. Was that an important part of your upbringing?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, I can't say that it was. Um, there was a time, and I don't know, and I can't recollect, how old I was exactly, but I think early elementary, maybe third or fourth grade. I can't recall. There was a church literally right up the road beside the school that I used to go to, the elementary school. I remember going up there on occasion for like a summer Bible camp or something like that a couple times, and then somewhere along that line, maybe fourth grade, fifth grade, maybe. My mom took us to another church that was pretty close by for just a little while. Not was it long? I don't know. I've never had that discussion with her. Still to this day. So something was leaning on her. I think her heart to take my brother and I there. But we never really went back after that. And so I would say I had certain people that were in my neighborhood, and two, three that come to mind that I can think of. So this is a good question to make me think out my upbringing. I think three guys that I can think of, and they were all older than me. They were my brother's age, and maybe one of them was a year younger than my brother. So I knew they knew God because they talked about it. It wasn't something that they talked about and just wore you out over, but they mentioned it in conversation. I can't remember all those conversations. I just remember they were different, and it wasn't a bad different. So they don't know that probably, but they were somewhat influential in my life. And that's why I think it's so important that we all can make a difference in people's lives.
Even if when you don't even know it.
No, and you don't have to know it. You just got to live your life that way. So that was, I think, seeds planted in my life. I went to Northeast State College, dated my first wife through high school, through college. We got married right after college. Already had a job at Raytheon Defense. I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit here. I don't want to forget about my grandparents because they were very influential. But as we were married, I got involved with a group of guys at Raytheon Defense that were in Amway. I don't know if you ever heard of that company or not.
Oh,
It's like
I've
a
heard of
network
it.
marketing.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so these group of guys were really good Christian guys, and in fact, one of those guys I was telling you about that was a neighbor of mine. That was a couple of years older than me. He was involved in it as well, which was kind of interesting. But so that was another stepping stone of being around the right people, the right influence, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. Um, but I tell you what really tugged my heart was when my wife and I decided that we would like to have a child, and she got pregnant immediately. That was not a problem, and at 28, I was going to be a dad, and I really that was on my heart the whole time she was pregnant.
Mm.
And I'm like, I just feel like we need to get in church, and uh, I was at a local grocery store and saw a professor of mine that I used to have at Northeast State. And I would have never thought that he was a Christian. And I think it was because of his personality was so dry. But but we got to talking, and he asked me if I was in church and whatnot, asked me about my life, and he invited me to church. And it was a church close to my house. And I thought, well, I'll go. So my wife and I went. We started going to church there. So that was kind of my first real step out into going to church and trying to understand really what Jesus was about.
Mm.
You know. So I kind of skipped over my grandparents. I do not want to skip over them. It was my grandparents on my mom's side. They were probably the most influential to me on the work ethic side. They were farmers their whole life, and also my great grandmother, which was my mom's mother. So we all had a pretty close, tight knit family together. So I learned a lot from just them and living life right. But even with that, God was never really mentioned. Mm. However, we would get together for these great big Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. And so it would be all the families. And back then, including all the kids and cousins and everything, it was usually 35 or 40 people. And I remember very vividly that my grandmother's, it was her sister's husband who was a Christian, and he would always pray over every meal. And it wasn't just your basic prayer, hey, God, thank you for the food and family. I mean, it was a really just heartfelt prayer. Mm. And so it's another seed planted in my life. Mm. So I think just sitting here talking about this is bringing back some memories of seeds that had been planted at different times and stages in my life that's kind of brought me to where I am today. So it literally goes back to what you said earlier about just stepping out and doing something so you could see what other doors would open. That's no different than planting those seeds, because you never know where they're going to grow and how they're going to grow. So probably got a little bit off base there, but
no, it's good.
That was a good question. I wasn't quite prepared for that, but
well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
So graduated college over at Northeast State, go to work for Raytheon Defense. I mean, that's a pretty big, top 5 defense contractors. So you were a government civilian, a contractor.
Yes.
But you had like a little DOD card and
yes. Yes. I was an electronic technician.
Okay. So was that where your career continued for a while until you mentioned 2016, 2017?
Yeah, I'll
You know,
give.
big career. So how did that look like at Raytheon and then moving forward with a wife, a son? Was it a son you had?
Yes.
Yeah, how did that go?
Yeah, so let me give you a little of the transition. So at 21, actually, when I graduated from Northeast State, I graduated in June. A month prior to that, I was actually blessed to have gotten a job at Raytheon Defense.
Oh, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal, especially knowing that we were going to be getting married.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that stress on our honeymoon, right? Oh, where am I going to work? So I worked second shift, so it worked beautifully. And I was still able to finish out my classes at Northeast State, graduated in June. So I had a job in May 15th, June 12th, graduated on my birthday, and July 15th got married. So it was a whirlwind, but it was a good whirlwind.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 1988, and I got laid off. I worked there for 7 years. I got laid off, and right after Thanksgiving of 95, they laid me off, which, I knew it was coming at some point because they were phasing out the plant
Mm-hmm.
and was going to move operations elsewhere. So my son was, he was born and he's 5 months old, I guess, at that point in time. When I lost my job, I kept my job until December. So my son was 5 months old. My wife I'm trying to remember, I think she had went back part-time. And then, yeah, she worked part-time and then went back to full-time after 6 months. And so I was still laid off. So I really enjoyed that time with my son. Yeah, we just got a house.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing about it. We just bought a house. We had all debt paid off, no debt, and I bought a house. But that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just took that risk because I knew at some point I'd probably get laid off. So that ended my career really in the technical field. After about 2 years at Raytheon, I realized, I just really wasn't into being indoors, same place, same time, same, clock in, clock out, lunch, break. It is boring. The electronic field to me was boring. So it just wasn't a fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
But, do what you got to do. And at that time, actually, before my son was born, I guess it was about 2.5, 3 years into Raytheon, I realized, this is not really where I want to be. I actually started looking seriously at pulling out and quitting and going on my own into, a mowing and landscape business. Simply because that's what I did for 10 years. Started 11 years all the way through college. At 21, I mowed yards for extra money.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't have the backbone. It's a perfect opportunity. My wife had a reasonable job and reasonable benefits. It wasn't a great job. It wasn't great benefits. But together, dual incomes, no kids, dinks, they called us.
Yeah.
It's the time to take risk if you're going to take risk, because the older you get and you get married, you start having the kids.
Forces you to make decisions.
It forces you to make decisions, and it's harder to take a risk because it's not just you, it's not just your wife, it's you, your wife, and family, and a house, and car, and insurance, and it's everything. So
Yeah.
you understand that.
I'm walking through it right now.
Yeah, yeah. So after I got laid off, I looked for different jobs, and it was really frustrating. It's really frustrating back then. you'd send off, internet just really started happening in 95 or something like that, I think. Really got popular with computers and all that stuff. And so you'd send off a resume and never hear back from people. Just would just drive me insane. And I'd
Well,
never,
not much change. So
yeah, yeah. I never applied for anything in the newspaper. I always applied for things that were online. And, but again, long story short, how God works is pretty cool if you let Him. If you don't, put your blinders on like I did for many years. But I picked up a paper one day just for the heck of it, local paper. Looked at job opportunities because usually in local paper there's not. It's your very low wage earning positions, at least back then, right? And there was a job in there to a PO box, and it was in sales. And at that point, I was just fed up. I was ready to get out of the house. I was ready to get a job, ready to make some money for the family, right? I did enjoy that time with my son. There's nothing ever can take that back. I really enjoyed that time off with him as he was a toddler, a small toddler. Anyway, I didn't hear anything. I put in for that job, didn't hear anything. And you can go to the post office and just give them a P.O. box number and they'll tell you who it is. They have to tell you, not if it's a residence, but if it's a business, it's law. They tell you who it is. So I knew who it was. So I found the number, local number. I called them up. And back then it was a receptionist that answered the phone. I said, yeah, I was calling about this job that was open and posted a couple weeks ago. She said, oh, yeah, that's so-and-so. I'll transfer you. And so anyway, I was transferred. And long story short, this guy was talking to me. Oh, yeah, I saw your resume. And he said, I think you're overqualified. We've heard that before, right? Overqualified. How can you be overqualified? You want somebody underqualified? And I was so frustrated with just pent up frustration at that point. It taught me a good lesson. I spoke my mind. I said, well, that piece of paper is not going to tell you anything. You want to meet me and see who I am? You meet me face to face. Boom. Lunch, had the job. That transitioned me into everything that happened since. So it goes back to what you said. You got to step out.
Took a little action.
And I can't take credit for that. I was just frustrated. But because of that sales role, never been in sales in my life, but here's what I figured out. Number one, I like people. I like talking to people. I'm really not interested in selling anything. That's the other thing I figured out. You don't have to be. Solve the problem. Figure out what the problem is. Bring solutions to the table. Solutions sell themselves. So 2 years in that company, I was making more than I'd ever made in the 7 years I'd made at Raytheon. And I was like, I know where I need to be now. But again, transition time. The owner of that company and I didn't see eye to eye.
The guy who interviewed you?
No, he was the manager. He was the manager. He did not own the company. But the owner of that company, and everybody runs into this, right? You run into those people that you just don't agree with. But you know what? You have to just pull your pants up and just do your job because you got to have a paycheck.
Yeah.
And so I did for a long period of time, but I was starting to look for jobs again. And again, this nothing to me, but one day a recruiter called into the office, and I'm in sales, so I'm not in the office. I'm out of the office. So that recruiter asked to speak to the Washington County manager, territory manager. Well, that was me. I had Washington County, Tennessee. Back then, we were broken up into counties. You'd sell in Sullivan County, you'd sell in Washington County, etc., Carter County. And so she put him through to my voicemail. And then I got the message, and this was a medical recruiter calling in, had a job opportunity. And it kind of floored me. I'm like, yeah, I'm open. And set up the interview. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the process to the next step. He set up he interviewed me. Then he set up an interview with inside the company. And then finally, I was going to be interviewed by a senior VP that was going to come to the area. So ultimately, I interviewed with that senior VP, and I felt like it was a pretty good interview, but I had never been in the medical field in my life, so I was a little bit nervous about that. But at the end of the interview, what do? You close the deal, right? And I asked him, I said, is there anything keeping me from taking this position? And he said, well, just one. He said, you don't have a 4-year degree. And your lack of runway on experience. And I'm like, well, you're right. I don't have a 4-year degree. But my past 2 years of never being in sales and being the top salesperson at that company should speak for itself. What do you need to see? I'll bring you the paychecks. Mm-hmm. Anyway, just because I stepped out again, a little bit out of my comfort zone, he said, well, I'll tell you what, just go ahead and go take one of those. It's a profile test, like a personality test, you know. So I did that, and he said, I'll touch base with you, afterwards. And I followed back up and with my recruiter, because you had to go through your recruiter. And he said, yeah, you're going to go on a test ride with a sales rep. I had no clue what that was. All right. Never been in sales, never been in medical sales, but basically it was another level of checking you out. And if that guy happened to be a guy, could be a guy or a gal, but it was a guy. If he liked me, he would then tell the senior VP, and then the senior VP would eventually make the decision. Mm-hmm. And so luckily he did, and I got the job. And so that was in 2000. And then I worked that job until 2014, until they fired me. So that's a little bit of a history of work.
Well, why'd they let you go?
I wasn't hitting quota. The national average for that company at the time, I think, was 12% gross profit. I had 17% gross profit for my territory, but I wasn't hitting quota. But I was making triple six figures, but I wasn't hitting quota.
So what translated, or did the sales role that you had previously, did it help you out doing the medical sales?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it very different?
No. I think everything in life is a stepping stone. You can learn from everything you do and apply it in absolutely everything you do. It was a good stepping stone. But I tell you, the medical world's a whole different world. And my personality is I want to learn everything about it that I can, and I want to know it all. So I feel confident in it. It's kind of like God's word, right? I want to know it all. So I feel confident in it. You can't. And when I learned that, I think it was a big help in understanding, okay, here's what you know. You understand how to evaluate situations, look at issues or problems, and bring solutions to it. And if you can't think of a solution yourself, you've got the team of people you can reach out to gain enough knowledge to do that. And that's what I've learned through that whole process. So you don't have to know everything.
I think that's a good principle. You mentioned, things throughout life can be applied elsewhere. You take that same principle and you look at my marriage, raising your kids, your finances. Like, and analyze it like it would be a project, like it is a problem to solve, come up with a solution, and then implement it. I mean, it might not be the perfect one, but it's better than no action at all, and then you just keep wallowing in your misery.
Yeah, it's easy to beat your head against the wall if you're doing the same thing over and over and it's not working, right? If it's not working, you need to change it. I learned a lot by doing that. Sometimes I'm a little hard headed, so it took a little bit. But yeah, you can apply those principles, and I say those principles, you can apply God's principles in every area of your life. It doesn't matter what it is. I've learned that over the years, and it's amazing the blessings that's just come up on me. It's not all about financial. It's just about the blessings of the people in your life, the relationships in your life, the way you look at life. And when I say daily gratitude, I have daily gratitude. I'm very thankful every single day. Very thankful to be sitting here right now, free to sit here, because of folks like you as well that served in the military, people that have died for our freedom. We're able to sit here and have this conversation.
Amen.
So
this forces you, gives you a little push to break out into the franchise realm. And how would you say that the things you learned throughout your sales roles helped you? You had your initial look for the franchise, didn't really work out, but then you got into the consulting realm. Did it translate really well? Like, how did you find the application of those things you had learned throughout consulting?
there's a lot of things I could touch on there. So one is never give up. Two is, I think what I've really learned and what I love about what I'm doing now is I truly can make a huge generational impact. I can be that seed that's planted and make a generational impact in other people's lives. Probably far more than I was able to do that in my previous jobs. And what, you're probably asking, what do you mean by that? Well, just for an example, the young man 5 years ago, and I use him for a good reason, because he was 32 years old when he said, I just can't go another Sunday having the Monday dreads. He had been out of college. He had his 4-year degree. He had been out, working at that point 10 years in the corporate world. He was making $200,000+ in bonuses. Now he's working for himself. It's him and his wife. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's not going to be, especially for the first 3 to 5 years, depending on your work ethic too, right? But now, as they think about having children, they've got something that I wish I had more of back when my son was little. I had some, but when you own a business and you've built it to a certain level, and that's the thing about it, a lot of people think, oh, you own a business, it's going to own you 7 days a week. It can, because it's always on your mind, and you're responsible for your family. But if you build a business and you build it right, in 5, 7, 10 years, depending on that person and what type of business it is, it gives you income and it gives you time. It gives you flexibility, because ultimately what happens is you start hiring people to do those tasks that you don't maybe necessarily want to do, that take away from your productive time. So it's things like that, to me, I think is phenomenal, because that can not only affect the husband and wife, but their future children. And who knows? I love to see and talk to people that their kids have been involved in their business and now they're entrepreneurs. I love seeing that. So it's something that can be handed down as well.
Sure. So let's just say somebody wants to start, they want to start something. They really don't know. And, I've learned throughout my course of interviewing, you really got like three options. You can go do a startup. You can go buy an existing business, maybe from someone who doesn't have a continuation plan or a succession plan, or you can franchise. If I'm missing one, please enlighten me. But
You hit them.
those are the three that I know of so far. So why would someone pick franchising versus startup or, buy an existing business?
Yeah, it's a good question because, see, I looked at all three of those. So when I was in my early 20s, I told you I looked at getting out and quitting and starting my own landscape and mowing business. That's a startup. What is it to a startup that most people fail at? Most of those businesses will fail in 5 years. You have to understand so many aspects. And it doesn't matter what kind of business it is. You have to understand so many aspects about it. One is, who's your audience? Two is marketing. How's your marketing work? How much should I spend on marketing? And then three, where's my customer base? How am I going to get my customer base? How am I going to get my leads? So there's a lot to a startup that, my hat's off to people that have started a business from ground up and have been successful at it. My hat's off to you. That's an incredibly hard task to do. But there's plenty of people that's done it, but there's plenty of people that's failed. So that was the first one I looked at, doing it myself. I just didn't have the backbone to step out there and do it. After I got let go from the medical field, the second business opportunity, like you mentioned, I looked at multiples, local. I looked at existing businesses 25 years and older that someone had started and owned, and they didn't have a succession plan. They didn't have anybody in their family or anybody that was going to take it over. They were going to sell the business. They were going to retire. They were ready to exit and had no one to hand it off to. That's the ones I wanted to look at. Don't want family involved, right? I looked at multiple of those businesses. One, I come so close, I would have bought it. But a guy had already signed a contract before me. If he could get the money, he got it. He finally got the money, so he bought the business. And that was kind of my last stint because I was so disappointed. So you have those businesses. Honestly, those businesses are good businesses to buy. I'm looking at some now myself for various reasons. I'm 58. I'm not young like you anymore. If I had 4 to 5 of the right people that had great work ethic and could withstand not having benefits, I'd start a franchise today. If I was 20 years younger, I'd start it. I don't want to do that at my age. So there's pros and cons to both. But if you have an existing business that's got good P&Ls, good customer base, have been in business preferably 10 years. I've seen some that's been in business 7 and 8 years. It's pretty darn good. Preferably 10 years or more. I've helped and am helping someone locally look at businesses like that. Because that's a good opportunity to go ahead. You're going to pay a premium for that business because they've got a successful business up and running, and they've got financial history. They have employees already in place. Doesn't mean they're the right employees. It just means they've got employees in place. So it's It's an easier start than starting from ground up and building it yourself because it's already been done. And there's still some learning there you'd have to do going into that business and buying that business. Excuse me. But you can go in and tweak that. And that's usually what it takes, the right tweaking, and build more loyal employees, do more for your employees, and grow that business and be more profitable. I guarantee it in the first 18 months that you own it. So I see no issues with that at all. It's got to be the right opportunity. Franchising. What does franchising really do? I have this conversation a lot. It's a proven business model that's successful. That's what the FDD is, the franchise disclosure document. You have successful franchisees that's operating within those parameters.
And they're just duplicating it.
That's all you're doing. Duplicate, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. You know, it's a business model that you have support on too. So when I mentioned 10-year support, when you buy a franchise, or I should say awarded a franchise, you're buying a franchise, but that franchisor is not going to just sell you a franchise just because you want it. If they're a good franchisor. There's some that may not be. And those are the ones that'll fail. They want to award you a franchise because you are a good fit. And if they award you a franchise, they're going to give you 10 years of support from corporate office. They're not going to go get your customers for you. You know, they're not going to make all your phone calls for you, but they've got marketing already figured out. They're all the time fine-tuning their marketing. And a lot of them have even call centers that you can pay a little bit more of a percentage and utilize their call centers. And I would recommend that as well. But they're a great support system. So you'll get corporate support, but the other thing too is you get franchisee support. And I found that to be very, very effective, because what you'll find is when you get into a franchise business, well, there's some other folks that's getting into that franchise business the same time you are. And so you develop relationships, you bounce things off each other.
Lean on each other.
Yeah, but the other thing that they have as a franchise corporation is they usually have their own communication system internally with all the franchisees, and you can throw any question or anything up there that you want anytime you want. And they help each other succeed. So it's just a support system. That's really what it is. It's a proven business model. It's making X number of dollars if you do this right here, A, B, C, and D.
So as far as the infrastructure, it's already built, like their accounting systems. Do you have to get your own, or is that, here's how you do accounting, here's the system you use, you need to hire one of these people to sit there and click here? Like, is it...
No, it's a good question.
The infrastructure built for you generally, or is that something that you have to figure out internally?
No, generally that's all done. It's all turnkey, because they want all the franchisees to be operating on the same levels, because you'll have a franchise coach as well. And that franchise coach is working for corporate. And so they don't need to be looking at 10 different systems. They need to be looking at one. And so it keeps everything unified so you can grow evenly together.
So how big does a company need to get before they say, we want to start franchising?
Good question. That's a good question. I'll be pretty general about it, but this is what I've learned in the 6 years that I've been doing this. Because I had some local folks ask me, hey, I'd like to franchise my food truck. And I'm not knocking that. That's great. How many trucks you got? One? Well, okay. How long you been in business? 5 years? Okay, that's good. Have you got $500,000 to $1 million to franchise? No? Okay. You probably don't need to be looking at it then. You really need to have, it's good to have at least 2 locations open for at least 2 to 3 years successfully. You're going to have proof that that concept is financially viable and can make money. And it's got to be in the FDD. So that's the other thing. So to get started in trying to set up your business as a franchise, at minimum you need $500,000.
Because you're really kind of building a new business.
Well,
It's like a case study.
You-
Can this even work?
You've got to, first thing you're going to do is get a franchise attorney that's going to help you develop that franchise disclosure document, that FDD, the 200 to 300 page FDD surrounding your business. That's not cheap. Yeah, we've had some people that's gotten it done cheap and they have failed miserably. So you're talking 100, depending on the size that you already are, you're talking 100, 150 grand just for that.
Well, so I guess for definition purposes, so let's say I go into a town and I see a coffee shop, and I go to the other town and it's the same coffee shop with the same name, and they got like they do that in 3 places. Does that mean it's a franchise, or they could just own multiple stores? Like,
Yeah, it's possible they could just own multiple stores.
okay,
For the most part, and I'm glad you brought that point up. So I never really thought about this until I got into franchising. Is you would not believe how many hundred franchises we have right here in the Tri-Cities. It's mind-blowing. Now every business I look at, I'm going, oh, it's a franchise. That's a franchise. I always thought it was a local moms and pops business, but it's not. And what you said is true. You could have 3 coffee shops in 3 different cities and not be a franchise. Somebody's got deep pockets. But you have deep pockets if you have a franchise too, because coffee shops aren't cheap. Anything what I call brick and mortar, and that's a conversation we can have, is very expensive. Upfront capital. And that's where I learned a lot in the franchise world when I started looking at that local kitchen tune-up franchise. What I found out is you've got home-based franchises. I'll explain that. And you've got some just service franchises that you can't necessarily be home-based. You might have to lease a small space. And then you have brick and mortar. Your brick and mortar is going to be your big capital intensive businesses. They're going to be your QSRs, quick service restaurants.
like you want to put up a Taco Bell somewhere.
Yeah, they're going to be, you really just can't do it probably well, Taco Bell's a whole different story. You get into the Taco Bells and the McDonald's of the world, and that's what we always think of when we think of franchise. Or I do. Most people do. They think of food, number one, and number two, they think about McDonald's or Starbucks or something. You can't touch that for $1 to $2 million, and that's without real estate.
Yeah, my buddy looked at franchising for Black Rifle Coffee Co.
Yep.
And they told him it was going to be like over $1 million, and he's like, oh, for a coffee shop?
Yeah, we have some pretty significant coffee establishments in our portfolio, and to do it right, it's about 1 to 1.5 million, and one's on the low end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think 10 years ago he said it was 1.2 million for that one.
Yeah. It's very expensive. Brick and mortar is expensive. Planet Fitness, think about these things.
Oh, that's a lot of equipment.
Yeah, and real estate, the building, all of those are, $1 million to $2 million, again, without real estate. So you got your brick and mortar businesses out there, and they're just On the low end, 500,000. On the very low end, you got a hand stone spa or any kind of spa. Really, it doesn't matter what it is. It's 500 to 800,000. That's on the low end. So you've got those types, and then you got the home base. And you got some service businesses and senior care businesses. You can just lease an office space, right? So that's where your overhead goes way down, and your capital outlay is a lot less. But I always thought most people that do think of those big dollar,
Sure.
and they're like, I can't do a franchise. So most of the franchises that I've helped people with have not been in that brick and mortar world. It's been in the senior care and home service world. There's a couple reasons. Senior care, it's huge, and it's not going to stop. You got 11,000 people a day turning 65 years old. That's going to be for the next, 15 years plus. It's a huge business, but you have to be passionate about that business.
Well, let's say I think I could get a loan for 100 grand. And I say, hey, Rich, I want a franchise, but I got 100 grand. Is that even possible?
Yes.
Tell me how to do it.
Yeah. So I did a little bit of background work there, but yeah, it's possible. Depends on the franchise, but the majority of the home service franchises I help people with are between the $90,000 and $200,000 mark. Depends on what franchise it is, number one, and how you start that business, number two. So there is a little background to that, and I won't go too deep. But before we even got to the financials, we'd have a better understanding of where you wanted to be. But if you came into me and you said, Rich, this is what I want. I want a home service franchise. I've got $100K. Well, first thing I want to say, so is that $100K cash? What do you
Well, the bank's going to
the bank.
me if I
Okay.
give a
Okay.
good FDD to them or something.
Okay. All right. So that's another thing I talk to my folks about is where the capital's going to come from. Generally speaking, you're not going to your hometown bank and getting money for a franchise. That's why we have franchise funding partners. Kind of like the franchise attorney. That's all they do. They don't give you car loans, boat loans, house loans. They give you small business and franchise loans. How they work that is through SBA, right? Through programs like ROBS, Rollover Business Startup. Most people have never heard of those. I was one of those. That's the best thing since sliced bread, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Rollover business startups?
Yeah. So how old are you?
I'm 35.
35. And you're a little different because you've been in the military. Now you got your own business. So I'm going to ask this just to get an idea. Do you have a 401k or an IRA?
Yeah, I got a little playing the Roth game.
Okay. So you do. So this is a conversation I have with when I'm doing consulting with my candidates is, all right, depends on how long they've been in the workforce, right? We look at where that money potentially could come from. And like for me, I'll take me as an example. Okay, I'm 58. I've got X dollars now in the IRA. It used to be a 401k. I roll it over. I'm 58. I'm not 59 and a half. You got to be 59 and a half or the government's going to ding you 10%, right?
9.5.
And then you're going to get hit with a little extra taxes too, right? In your tax bracket. With the rollover business startup, you're not going to get dinged. So at 35, I'm just going to use you as an example. I'm just going to make up these numbers. I want people to understand this. Let's say you have 400,000 saved up.
Oh, geez, that'd be great. All right, this is a good example. I
Okay.
like that.
Let's say this business, this particular home service business, to really get it started properly without putting you in a bind, because we're not going to do that. If we put you in a bind, we're not going to do it. 125K. I can contact one of my franchise funding partners for $4,000 or so. They'll set you up. They'll take out $125,000 of your $400,000, and now it's going to be funded. It's going to be investing into your own business. So it's no different than investing in stocks or anything else. It's investing in your business. So the money never touched your hands.
With no penalty.
No penalty. No taxes. You've done nothing different. You've not pulled money.
That's interesting.
You're just investing now in Zach's Corporation, whatever the name of that may be. So there's a lot of ways you can fund a business. Now, for $100K, can you do it? Depends on what business it is. Most home service businesses, what do they have? I'm just going to give you an example.
I mean, like a van to drive around.
Thank you.
Got to have insurance for the van.
Yep. Yep. The two things that's going to be your most expensive
employees
cost is going to, that's it. It's going to be that employee and that lease on the van. Now you can buy a van, but again, I'm not your accountant.
Lease the van.
Lease the van. Do you pay cash for business? That's up to you. I say borrow the money because you want your business paying for those loans, right?
To service your loans. I mean, you want to leverage the banks.
That's right.
For your benefit.
Leverage their money, right? So that's kind of how home service works. My friend started out with one van. I can't remember how many he's got now. I think he's got five or six. He's got 7 or 8 employees. How do you scale? That's the other important thing. How do you scale your business? Well, in this case, you add a van, add a tech. Add a van, add a tech. And that's how quickly you can scale a business like that versus how do you scale a coffee shop? How do you scale a Planet Fitness? How do you scale a QSR? Well, get ready to outlay a heck of a lot of money.
What's a QSR?
I'm sorry, quick service restaurant. It's just a short term for quick service restaurant. So it costs a lot of money and it takes a lot longer to scale those.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, depending on the business, of course, this is generalities, the profit margins are smaller.
So just a quick question about this small business rollover.
Yeah, the ROBS.
Can you say it for me one more time?
Yeah, the rollover business startup.
Startup. Okay. Does it have to be with a franchise, or can you use that for just a business loan?
It can be a business as long as it is a business.
I mean, because I'm already thinking about how I could use that, but
yeah, well, I can hook you up with my funding partner. He's a good Christian man, and he'll give you a free consultation.
That'd be great. Other question I had. So let's say you got a business owner. They're working 7 days a week, pulling their hair out, really struggling to scale it. Maybe they don't have the knowledge, the people, the infrastructure in place. And they might see franchising as a way to get that infrastructure and copy it. Can they go franchise with their existing thing and just change the name to whatever the franchise is? Like, is that possible?
There's some legalities of that, but it's possible. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, something I've seen happen quite often is a franchise will come into an area and they'll make an offer to maybe a moms and pops local business for different reasons, right? That moms and pops, they may be ready to hang it up, but they have a customer base. and I've seen them buy those businesses before, and then that particular territory now is that franchise's territory. So yeah, there's all kinds of ways, creative ways that can happen.
Generally, does the franchise offer down, or can someone like offer up? So like, hey, franchise, can I be a part of yours? I'm already bringing all my stuff to the table. Is that where the legalities kind of get into
Yeah,
play?
that would be a legal question for the franchise, or they call them franchisors. The corporation is a franchisor.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it doesn't take as much as people might think to go start a franchise. What would be some practical steps that one would take if, they can't really afford to do a startup. They can't, just based on what they want to do, they can't really do it on the side to kind of build it and then transition. You could do the buying an existing one, but what would someone need to do to go find out more about franchising and some of the steps that they should probably like get their house in order, tidy up some things before going out and starting or being a part of a franchise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm going to start with this because you can go a lot of different ways with what you just said. So, when someone gets on my calendar, and if I don't hit your question, make sure you re-ask it. But
Okay.
if somebody gets on my calendar for an initial call for a consultation, my first question to them is, why are we talking today?
I got to do something different, Rich.
Yeah.
I'm tired of working for the man.
And I've heard that a lot, and I appreciate that. So you want to do something different. So, but why is it you wanting to do something different? You've been doing what you're doing now for 20 years. You're 42 years old.
I want to be my own boss, Rich. I don't want someone telling me when to be at work.
Okay.
I want to do my own thing. I want something that I can leave my kids. I want to be able to build something, to give it to them, and I want to get my time back.
I like that answer. So, if you don't mind me asking, so are you making 100,000 now or plus?
Oh no.
Yeah.
If I was making that much, I'd probably stay where I'm at.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So I think you just answered a question for me then. So if you had a job opportunity come up making $100,000, what would you do?
Oh, I mean, it's twice what I make now. My wife would be happy. Probably buy a nicer car, more food for the kids, better shoes. I mean, that'd be great. And that's what I want to do with this franchise. Just make bank.
Right. So you're telling me you still would want to own your own business long term, though.
Yeah, I think it'd be good for me. But, if someone offered me a job tomorrow, that's be pretty tempting. I have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's what I would probably tell you is you're not ready.
But Rich, I do want to try.
All right, so let's take this a step further then. So, have you thought about what type of business you would want to run?
I was hoping you could help me with that one.
Okay, I will help you with that. Let's start out like this. Have you thought about a budget for your franchise business? In other words, how much money, range-wise, are you willing to get a loan for?
Well, this rollover small business thing that you just told me about, got a little 401k, nothing crazy, but if they'll let me use that, maybe, I don't know. I don't got that much.
Okay. All right. So that's the first thing we'd probably have to do, and that's where I'd get my franchise funding partner involved to talk to you a little bit about that, to help you understand your options, because I want you to go into this thing wide open, because I take it very seriously. And the other thing about it is not just looking at what it's going to cost to get into business, but also understanding, do you have benefits already? Is your wife working? Does she have benefits? Because there's a lot of different things to think about there. Now, I have some other partners that I've recently networked with that could probably help you in that area as well. But these are things you have to think about for you and your family, because this is not a short-term decision. This is not much different than what you and your wife did in looking at your first home, right? To buy. You went to a bank. They told you how much money that you were going to be qualified for to buy a house, and you went in there thinking, oh yeah, we're going for this $500,000 house, and the bank said, no, you're going for 380 tops. Similar setup in business world, because ultimately, if the business fails, you fail, and so does the franchisor. And they do not like to have failure, and here's why. For multiple reasons. But you remember me telling you about the FDD? Every franchisee is located and listed by name, address, phone number, email in that FDD. Also, every single franchisee that's ever failed is listed in that FDD. They don't want failure. They want success. So that's kind of a little background on how that operates and works. So did I answer your question, or do I need to hone down a little bit more?
No, that's pretty good. There's one other that maybe it'll come back to me. But I guess kind of what you're getting at is, as the same thing, if you were going to start a startup and you're going to step away from your well-paying job that you have security with to do something where you could not make $1 for an extended period of time, some research, building up some kind of capital,
you have to continue to have the capital outlay to pay those expenses that you have right now for the next 18 months, let's just say. Depending on the franchise and depending on your work ethic. A lot of people will say, what's the best franchise to own that makes the most money? I don't know. What's your work ethic?
Where can I make the most amount of money with the least amount of work?
Yeah, I mean, so ultimately it comes down to that. It's what's your work ethic? I can't tell you what franchise that is. I can tell you the franchises that's done very well, but they've done very well because they found the right franchisees that fits their mold, that fits their culture, and the franchisees know that that's their culture, and they follow process. We have found that veterans are the best franchisees, bar none, because they follow process.
That's not really talked about much. Even in my transition, it was, small business, SBA was talked about. Entrepreneurship generally is talked about a lot. I mean, there's so many influencers out there that are like, hey, veterans can go be entrepreneurs. Well, there are plenty of things that there's quite a few weaknesses of veterans, and a financial knowledge of like infrastructure and how, P&Ls work is one of the weaknesses that most veterans have, just because it's not that big of a deal practically at your lower echelons of the military.
Right.
So, but if there's a process that's already implemented, hey, this is what you do. This is how you do your accounting. This is the system you use. Make sure so-and-so accountant that you're going to hire, because you have to have one, is going to tell you to do this. That sounds really appealing.
I love that you said that, because one of my focuses is veterans, and to reach out to them and be able to just have conversation. There's so much that I want to give back. I want to give back to everybody, but veterans especially. But here's the real world, is a franchise corporation can take a veteran and teach them P&L. Do you have work ethic? Can you follow process? do you have good people skill? You have to have that. And if you've got those things, honestly, you can do any business whatsoever. Now, would you want to do any business whatsoever? No, that's where you need to have a little help in narrowing down the fields that make sense to you and your family, because everybody's an individual. And the other thing that franchises do as well, franchisors, is most of them give 20% discount on veterans for franchise fees. Most franchise fees are $50,000 to $60,000, so that's $10,000 to $12,000 discount just to get in business.
I mean, and to the veterans out there, I wish I would have known this when I was transitioning. I might have made different choices, but military is really good at following process. This is our whole organization's built on standard operating procedures. And if someone can hand you an SOP book, say, here's how you. Well, so let's say, guys, listen to this. I want to go out and get more information on a franchise. Do they just Google franchise consultant in my hometown?
That's another great question. So I'll tell you my experience from that. So when I was looking at buying that franchise kitchen tune-up and that deal didn't work out, I was just kind of frustrated because I was wanting to own my own business, period. So what did I do? I started doing the same thing. It's the worst thing you can do. I say worse.
Probably so many marketing people out there trying to.
Here's what you'll find out. The same thing I found out, but I didn't know what the heck was going on. Now do. So if you Google best franchises to buy, franchises in my area, whatever, there's going to be certain companies that come up SEO, right? Enlist. And you think these are franchise companies. For the most part, they're not franchise companies. They're franchise consulting organizations. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't hear me wrong. But so what I did is I opened up one of these, right? Clicked on it and I looked at these different businesses. And I'll give you a good example. Biz Buy Sell was one of them. And I clicked on this business, that business, that business, that business, because that interests me. This area, these categories interested me. And of course, you got to put in your information, right? Name, email. They can require different information, but it's always going to be name, email, phone number. I thought my phone was going to blow up with emails, texts, calls. And they're all different numbers. I'm like, what the heck? And I talked to a few of these guys, and so what I learned is this. You've got franchise consultants and brokers out there just like me that are marketing those particular franchise businesses. So they're putting those out there. They're paying money per month. I do the same thing. I do it in ads. I do it in a little different way, and I do it through LinkedIn as well. But you just have to be careful on who you talk to. So I'm not going to say it's not a good thing or not a bad thing. Just it's overwhelming. That's probably the best word I could come up with. To me, it was overwhelming because I continued to dig and look at different franchises and these brands because I was looking kind of in the home service space, and the home service space includes real estate, house remodeling, kitchens, bathrooms, etc. That's kind of my wheelhouse, right? It's what I enjoy. Even real estate property investment. But there's just so much information online, and there's so many companies that it just became overwhelming, and I quit. And that's generally what I found happens. And it doesn't mean anything good or bad. It just means it's just overwhelming. There's so much information on the internet. It's like having an understanding or comprehension of it. If I'd had someone like me break it down and go, here's the layout. Here's what it looks like. Let me dumb it down, and not in a mean way, right? But let me dumb it down, make it simple. I use the KISS method on myself. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Keep it simple. But there's 5,000 franchise brands in America. Good luck, right? There's a methodical way to go about finding out what business model that would work well with you and your personality and your work ethic and how you operate. One of those is by taking a franchise Oracle business profile, which I let people do for free. I pay $2,000 a year for it. But this is developed for the franchisors to help find the right franchisees for the right franchise business models or brands. So that's one way. It's a tool. It's not a guarantee, but it's a tool. So there's several things like that that I utilize to help people understand, hey, this is a better fit for you, and here's why. But the other thing is just having these conversations like you and I are having. Because if I understand what your budget is, and helping you understand your budget is more important just about than me, right? Because you need to understand it. You need to understand what the process looks like in looking at a franchise. Is somebody going to try to sell me? I don't want anybody to sell. That's what I was concerned with when I first started looking. If you're working with the right people, no one's going to sell you anything. I am going to educate and guide people to make the very best decision they can make. And I think I might have mentioned this to you in the past. I get people to the next level. What's that next level look like to you? Could it be just business ownership? Could it be franchise ownership? Or maybe it's neither. So therefore, maybe you need to focus over here, not waste any more of your thought process over here. Because maybe that's not where you need to be in life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I know if I'm doing right, and I'm going to do right the very best way I can, by truth and integrity, then that's going to help that person. I'm not looking to make a living off that person. A lot of people say, well, how many franchises have you sold since you've been in business? 0. Not a one. I don't sell franchises. I consult, educate, and get people to the next level. Once people go through my process, I will refer them to a franchisor. For example, my neighbor. We finally got through a couple of franchises looking at them. And I referred him to a couple of franchisors. And then that franchisor kind of took over the process. Because the franchisors will discuss the FDD with you. The franchisors will get you started in franchise validation. The franchisors will talk to you in depth about their business and how the day-to-day operations are, what it looks like the first 3 months, 6 months, a year. They're the ones who's going to award you a franchise, not me. Now, the beauty of that is I can be along by your side that entire time. Most people want me there. But I've worked with a few people that they're like, okay, I'm good, thanks. And usually those people are serial entrepreneurs. They have multiple businesses, or they've already owned a franchise and sold it, and now they're looking for another one. That's like one of the guys I'm working with now in Texas. He's already owned a franchise for 12 years. He exited the business, sold it, made a lot of money, and now he's looking at another franchise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you kind of qualify them, hold their hand, and then hand them off when they're ready to go.
You said it. I'm a pre-qualifier. I'm a vetter. I vet people to where they really even need to go talk to a franchisor. And if they do, then let's help you narrow down the area that best fits what you're trying to achieve long term. And long term is 10 years or more. A lot of people will say, well, do you have to be, I'm signing a contract and it's a 10-year contract. What if something happens? You can get out of the contract, but they want you for 10 years or more. Why? Because they're putting a lot of their effort and money into you as well. You'll see franchise fees. If you look up a franchise and it says, $50,000 franchise fees or $65,000 franchise fees or $35,000 franchise fees, or you may see some smaller than that, but there are not going to be too many of them. Franchise fees, a lot of people say, well, what is, am I paying? They think about realtor fees. I'm having to pay realtor fees. No, franchise fees is just that. You're buying their brand name, the rights to it, corporate support for 10 years. That's what you're doing. So you're not throwing money away. You're buying the rights to that business and how to operate it and build it. So in addition to that, you'll see, liquid costs, startup costs, and you always see a startup range, and that's kind of threw me off when I was looking at franchises. I Googled it. I didn't understand any of that stuff. And you'll have a range. It'll say 125,000 to 190,000. Well, which is it? 125 or 190? Which is it? It varies in different businesses for different reasons. If it's a home service business, for example, or even a senior care, you may start out with one van and one employee, or you may start out with two vans and two employees. See, your cost difference. You may buy into a call center. You may utilize their call center. So there's a lot of different things you can do to ramp up your business faster, which, quite frankly, if you can do it, it's better for you in the long term. So that's why there's a range. The other thing that's important for people to know, if that franchise business costs $125,000 to get started, and franchise fees were $60,000, you're thinking, "Oh man, that's $185,000." No, it's not $185,000. It's $65,000, because the franchise fees are always included in total price. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Well, as we close our time here, how can someone get a hold of you or maybe some of your peers and really go through this and just you qualify them and see if it's the right fit?
Yeah, appreciate you asking. So locally, I'd love to meet you. I'm a face-to-face guy. Phone number is 423-408-1711. Website is franvisionary.com. It's as simple as that.
I like that. So do you help people all over the country then?
Yeah, everywhere. Everywhere except Canada so far. But yeah, all over the U.S.
Oh, do they do I'm sure they do franchising.
Yep, do franchising in Canada, Hawaii,
Different rules.
Alaska, but those two states are extremely hard. Yeah, there's some different rules and things when you cross the border of Canada. We have franchises international. I work with the largest franchise corporation in the world in the home service industry called Neighborly. They're international as well. They have 30 franchises worldwide, 20 right here in the United States. Multi-billion-dollar company. I work with multiple multi-billion-dollar companies. But I'm not interested in international. If somebody's interested in international, I'll send you a referral to someone else. But I work in the U.S.
Understood. Well, what, I guess, pro tips would you have for someone really considering this? What, I guess, big pieces of advice would you give to someone who wanted to start this?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So if you really are thinking about business ownership, and this sounds funny probably, but you really do have to have and understand your why. You can't just go, "Oh yeah, I think I just want to do business." No, what's driving you to do that? Because you have to have the tenacity to make it happen. Because it's not going to be handed to you on a golden platter. I don't care if you spend $50,000 or $1 million; it's not going to be handed to you. But you have to have the why. You have to understand what is truly driving you and be sincere and honest with yourself. And you really just have to do some research and understand, okay, for yourself, what do I want? What are my goals, short term and long term? What am I trying to accomplish? Why am I trying to accomplish it? And what a lot of people don't understand, you also need to think about your exit strategy. A lot of people, including me, when I first started this, I wasn't thinking about exit strategy. Now that's all I think about. And different business opportunities and things I'm doing, how am I going to exit? What's it going to look like? And what people like, or what do you mean exit? Well, when you sell that business, how are you going to go about it to get the best return on what you've built? And that's why you go in business, right? You go into business for many reasons, but you go in business to build a very strong financial portfolio. Yes, I go in business to have financial means for my family. I go in business to buy me some freedom. And what does that mean? It means I'm hiring other people to do things that I don't want to do as I grow and build my business. Is it in day 1 year, 1 year, 2? But that buys your time back. That's the lifestyle part. But there's nothing easy about it. People just need to have a better understanding of really what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, how they want to go about it. What are they willing to sacrifice? You got to sacrifice. If you're not going to sacrifice, keep your job. And I hate to say that, but that's just the truth. I've learned that. I wish I'd have sacrificed a long time ago. I am so thankful that I got fired. I was pissed and bitter, probably for almost a year. Probably shouldn't have been, but I was. But God worked through some mysterious ways through this whole thing. And in the last almost 12 years of my life has been phenomenal. It's not been an easy road. It's not been rainbows and Pinocchios and all this stuff. It's not been, but it's been, I've been at such a peace with my life and where I'm at and why I'm here and what my purpose is. If you know your purpose, you can do anything.
Well, Rich, I really appreciate you on, and thanks for being here late at night on a Monday evening. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And
thank you for having me, man.
I hope to continue our relationship, and maybe one day I'll go get a consult once I get some things together, huh?
You can talk to me anytime. Be happy to do it. Anybody else that's out there, that's what I do. It's what I enjoy doing. And literally in 30 to 45 minutes, I can help somebody learn more than they'd learn probably an hour scrolling on the internet. And it can jumpstart you to where you need to go, whether it is business or not business. And to me, that's where I'm really effective, is being able to understand, read someone, and be able to take them down a path that makes sense to them.
Well, there you have it. Want to start a franchise, interested in learning more, please reach out to my friend Rich. And thanks for tuning in this week. Make sure hit like, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and give me a little rating on the Spotify. I'd really appreciate it. And until next time, thanks, Rich.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.